Hello. I want to say hello, everyone, but I'm not sure there's anyone out there as of yet. This is the inaugural show, my podcast, the Bjorn Identity. Who am I? I'm Kai Bjorn, networker, master networker, referral marketing. And so my goal today is to start presenting you with some really interesting topics. This podcast is fueled by corporate connections. What's corporate connections? It's an arena where we put people together to create more opportunities personally and professionally through building strong, structured relationships. With corporate connections, the purpose is to connect leaders around the world and empower them to create opportunities and meaningful change in their organization, communities, and lives. And the vision for us is to be the premier executive networking organization on this planet, catalyzing our members' businesses, professions, and personal growth like no one else is offering right now. And so we're really excited to have corporate connections behind the Bjorn Identity, where leaders connect. I'm extremely lucky on my inaugural podcast to have a good buddy of mine and one of the best networkers and humans that I know, Robert Gervais. Welcome.
Wow. Thank you, Kai. It's great to be here.
That's it. We've got 58 minutes left.
Well, happy to talk about whatever you want to talk about. Of course, I'm happy to be here. I've been collaborating with Kai for close to 20 years now, and we've known each other for much longer than that, going back to when we were kids, and kind of separated for a number of years and came back together. And it's a real pleasure to be here today because this is a topic that's close to my heart. It's something that I care about deeply, not as a business, although obviously that's important, but more about the impact that we can have on these individuals. You know, we refer to them as leaders because they are leaders in their respective organizations, but also about what it does for them and their communities and seeing that happen across the globe. It's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, the strength we have is our relationships, and rekindling ours is great. And what's interesting about having Robert here today is I come from a sporting background, played 12 years professional sports, and so I understand all the relationships and nuances with sport. And at a high level, sport is so synonymous with business. And, you know, you've got your NBA and you've built businesses, sold businesses, and now you're launching this business across the globe. I think there's a lot of interesting commonalities that exist, but we also bring some different perspectives to the table. And so, without further ado, Robert, the topic today is bandwidth. I mean, we meet so many people, and how you doing? I'm busy. The first thing I always want to say is, are you good busy? You know, and you don't want to be facetious, but today we want to break it down a little bit. And so we're going to start with what are the realities surrounding the taxation of our bandwidth today? What are some of those good changes that come along with technology and how we've adapted to connectivity? And then sort of look at what's the strength and the value of having a real strong, robust network around you to help facilitate managing your time. And so that is the goal today, is to sort of address each one of these points. And I'm going to start with the first one on the reality of our bandwidth. We're here at 12 o'clock, and I booked 4 quick Zoom meetings this morning, back to back to back, have no time to breathe. And so, you know, got to get the kids breakfast. You know, son has hockey. I overbooked myself, so my wife's got to go get the gear and go get to the little guy to the rink. I've got some presentations to do. I'm working on a speech. You know, you want to spend time with the other 2 kids. You want to do. At a certain point, you know, we're saturated with engagements. And I think we've lost the ability to determine which are the most valuable. You know, we fill it in. You know, we're always busy. And it's not necessarily always the real important stuff. And do we take enough time for ourselves? So what's your sort of idea with?
I think it's really interesting you say that because I agree with you. I think I know some people who throw around the "I'm busy" as though it's a badge of honor. They want people to think that they're busy. They want to look like they're in the juice.
Then you're successful.
Well, and it's almost this they want that recognition of I'm busier than you are, or I work harder. And I find it interesting because I think, you also get into some generational issues. I think thankfully, a lot of younger people who are super busy, but they treasure their time in a different way than maybe someone who's a little bit older who was taught, sort of, especially if you're Anglo-Saxon, you're taught it's hard work. Everything's about hard work. And the reality is, as you said, you get to a point, and now with technology, where it's a blessing on the one hand, because you have access to so much and immediacy. You can reach someone anywhere in the world at any time.
Stay focused. Stay focused on your take a day in the life of Robert, a week in the life of Robert, a month.
Yeah.
And you and I are good mates. We don't live far from each other. It's really easy for us to get together for a glass of wine or get together for a chat. I mean, we have to book it.
Yeah.
We're full.
Sorry. Can you bring the mic in front of you?
No, I think push it.
Yeah.
Are we still live?
Yeah, so real good. I'm going to cut it.
Look at this. So this is the beauty of an inaugural. Don't cut it out.
No.
This is the beauty of an inaugural podcast, and it just shows the effort that the Bjorn Identity takes to make sure that we have a perfect product and a clear, concise message. And so, like I said, this is our first attempt, and so we're going to stumble and bumble and make it through, but the content's great.
And our producer, Marie, is going to keep us on track.
Yeah, she will keep us on track so that it's the best possible product for the public.
Yeah, no, but so you're right. I guess what I was going at or for is, like you, our business is global, which means that my calls start sometimes at 5, 6 in the morning, and they go until however late I'm willing to work. And you're right. The temptation is to say yes. Because people have access, they think you should answer, they think you should be there and be available. So you say yes. Also because you wanna grow your business, you wanna have success. It's this weird thing where you're actually. I've always said I'm working as hard as I can so that I can slow down as quickly as I can. The problem is you don't necessarily ever slow down.
That's the goal, right?
But you don't necessarily slow down.
But come back with me to before we get into that technology, good, bad, and different. Come back to me with, what are the elements? Because they sneak up on us, man. I want my kids to have a whole plethora of activities, but that means I've got to find time for it.
Yeah.
I have business flow and opportunities and deals coming at me from our network, and I don't want to miss out on something. It was funny. I was trying to book a trip to go away with my wife, and she's just shaking her head. No, we got homework. We got that. We can't just do.
Yeah, well, I guess it's a bit of that is the FOMO, right? It's the fear of missing out. Is
that society right now, man? Is it just normal that we go because we can?
I think so. I think, look, probably 50 years ago, you compared yourselves to your neighbors. Now you compare yourselves to the world, right? You can't help it. You see everything everywhere, and you're going, okay, well, what should I be doing more? What can I do? How can I be more effective in my time? And of course, what ends up happening is, like you end up double booked, triple booked sometimes, which is kind of ridiculous. And you're doing a bit of triage, just trying to stay on top of everything. So yeah, I think, and of course, what that leads to is stress. And then as you get more stressed, it's even harder to stay on top of things. And like you, I've got young kids. Your kids are a little bit older than mine. But we're both at that point.
We're both in the rearing stage.
Yeah, it's a lot. And then if you're unlucky enough to have something happen, and there was things that have been happening in my life with my wife having some health issues. Yeah. Now all of a sudden you're kind of doing double duty, and you haven't really created this kind of pace that's sustainable.
Yeah, and you realize quite quickly how much effort and work your wife managed.
And you know what? And that's when you realize also how important your community is to try to manage this reality.
Yeah. It was interesting. We were lucky people, and my wife and I, we wanted to take the kids to sort of see the other side, right? We went to Guatemala, then we went to Belize. Great places, but we sort of figured that they'd see a truer sense of not the Western, I'm not explaining well, but the Western stuff where we have everything and all the bells and whistles for the kids. And it was really interesting because having done those trips, we realized, they had less and were a hell of a lot happier. Like there wasn't a lack of smiles and engagement, and we had a wonderful trip. So I don't think it's geographical.
Yeah.
I just think we're in that stage where I think your point's really good. You know, we don't judge ourselves by our neighbors. We judge ourselves in the world because we have access to the world.
Yeah.
It's one click of my finger, and I know that someone on the other side of this planet's doing this or has this or wants to do that. And so I think there's more noise. That makes sense?
Yeah, when you talk about the noise, and I always find it interesting.
Man, we used to have to wait a week for the second show of a TV series.
Well,
Now I can binge.
You could still do that if you watch Apple. Certain shows, they make you wait.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing. It's funny watching my kids when they have to wait for something now. They haven't grown up with any patience. Last week, we had massive power failure, of course.
Yeah.
You went through it as well as I did. And it was funny to see my kids, after about 40 minutes of having no power, and this lasted several days. And all of a sudden, my 7-year-old looks at me and she goes, "So what do we do?"
Yeah.
She's just used
It's getting
to always,
dark, Dad.
Well, yeah. Like, what do we do? And I'm like, I don't know. Let's play cards. We have a piano. We have a guitar. But they're just so used to not having to wait for things. And what are we having for dinner? I'm like, I don't know. We have no power. But
the reality was I have 43% left on my phone, Dad.
Well,
That's what I'm talking about.
Well, and then as the funny thing is, as that happened, and even mobile services were cut. Yeah. So for the first time in a long time,
oh man, it was Armageddon.
Yeah, but I could not communicate. So all of a sudden, that whole busy thing went out the window because I couldn't be busy except to be present in the situation we were in.
Yeah.
And it was a really strange thing. I couldn't even call people to cancel meetings, and that caused me like this tremendous stress because I always push my team and my people like, hey, don't be late. You got to show up. You got to communicate if you're not. And all of a sudden, you just couldn't do anything. And it was this really kind of strange moment. It
was nice.
Yeah, it was quiet.
I mean, my basement flooded. It's cost me a couple $1,000, and there's a bunch of stuff that is not as much fun. But it was interesting to your point that I didn't have the alarm clock go off.
Yeah,
I still got up. I didn't have to, and then I didn't have to run downstairs because I couldn't get on my computer to check emails or do this or do that. And so there was a little bit of reflection, but I have to be honest, I still had juice on my tablet and Netflix. I had downloaded a couple shows. So
there you go.
I still hooked in, but it was nice that I had that choice. Listen, so that leads me into that second piece that we want to look at. There's been change, and pandemic, it had happened. We all experienced it, but it did change the way we can communicate. And so there's a whole landslide of change. Whether do I need an office? Can I work from home? Do I need the same travel budget? Can we do deals online? Does DocuSign work and I don't have to be in person? Can we develop the same type of relationships? But it's brought in this whole slew of new. And so you've been able to manage your job more effectively, more efficiently, better with this online stuff? Do you lose things? Because it's good, but I think it's bad as well because it's created some different challenges.
Yeah, I think different's a great word. It's just different. I mean, when the pandemic hit a few years back and the whole world went kind of topsy-turvy, and is this business going to survive? What are we going to do? How we're a really human business. It's about people connecting and building meaningful relationships. And strangely, what we found when this happened is that our business thrived. Now, it wasn't easy. I think it was actually harder. We moved, like a lot of other people, to online meetings, but all of a sudden, I didn't have to travel 5-6 months a year to meet people. I didn't have to go to India to attend these chapter meetings in India. I could do it virtually. Is it as effective? I don't think so. I think it's different. It's not bad. I think if you and I are in different parts of the world and we already have that foundation, it's easy for us to connect online and keep the ball rolling.
Yeah,
but if we don't know each other,
no, that is tough.
Well,
how many times you meet somebody having had the beginning of the relationship online and go, holy smokes, you're tall.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all dependent on the camera that you have, on how you sit, where you are. Yeah, no, it's been interesting, but it's something I think that it becomes a good tool in your toolbox, right? It's not
Oh, it's
the
fantastic.
tool, but it becomes a tool, and I think that's where we are today, is managing that, because the kids went to school online.
Yep.
They didn't learn as efficiently or effectively as when they were in person. Okay, so that needs some adjustment, but like myself, like you, our business flourished online,
and
and it opened up a whole new
And it's not going
opportunity
away.
dynamic.
Yeah,
No,
it's not going away. I mean, look, we're talking about VR now, right? You know, we're seeing, can we have these online meetings where we're sitting around a table together, and it looks like we are sitting like this at a table together.
Yeah.
So really, but the issue with when I see these things, and people ask me a lot about technology in our business, and I find it really interesting because although it's allowed us to connect, I think a lot of the moments that relationships get built on happen in between the meetings.
100%.
It's in that 10 minutes before where you catch up with each other. It's in the 10 minutes after where you dive a little bit deeper. Sometimes the screens keep a little bit of distance between us in a way that we don't necessarily even recognize until we meet in person. So yeah, incredible tools. And I think it's changed certainly my life for the better, because I can run my business from anywhere in the world. I have access. But strangely, and this is one of the things I found really odd, is as we develop these tools, I'm actually busier. I would have thought, hey, I'm not traveling 4, 5, 6 months a year.
No.
You'd think I have more time, but the opposite has happened.
100%. And I've come to the understanding that I'm just more accessible.
Yeah.
I can't say no. I can still say no, but I have to be able to qualify it with on Tuesday, on Wednesday, because hey man, just a quick 30 minutes on Zoom. Click a link and we're engaged. But I like I said, I think it's a really cool tool, but I think we've lost sight a little bit to what you said, which is that relationship piece, man. And it's having that understanding. I know you have kids. I know some backstory about you. We had a meeting last night. It was really cool that you start chatting with someone and you find out what they like, and that they're a foodie and they're got some really great cooking skills and they know heaps about wine. It changes the dynamic of how we engage and the value. And man, going through 100 emails, 70 are crap, 30 are good, but I have to check all 70 because it's designed now as if they know me.
Yeah.
Hey, how are you doing?
Yeah.
Thank God I caught you. Who the hell are you?
Yeah.
And so how do you wade through this stuff? And I think that's the goal that we have right now.
Get a virtual assistant.
Yeah.
I mean, that is one of the benefits, right? You can hire someone anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
So there are ways, I think, and I think that's kind of where you have to figure out your own path, is how do I navigate this? And at the end of the day, we're all responsible for our own time. So that's part of our job, I think, as individuals. As you said it before, what's important to us? And I look at it as I've now met people in this business group. We're in 26 countries now. So I meet people online that I've never met in person. And I can't wait to meet them in person. But until then, you can have those conversations. Sometimes they don't happen as organically because you're not face-to-face in a restaurant, but you ask the questions. You drive the conversation and you can get there. So the technology, again, it's just the tool. How we use it makes all the difference.
Let me ask you, go back into the archives, think, has there ever been a funny engagement using these new tools? And right away I'm laughing because I was doing one of the initial Zooms and inadvertently the person had clicked the background off and they were in their closet. That was the safe space, quiet space for them. And they had this glorious background of this, spacious office, and then click, there's the shirts and the pants and the sweaters. It is funny that we're able to sort of mask, this is who I am. It's like like this cape I can put on.
I think people,
I'm putting on the spot.
Yeah,
but
no. Well, yeah. Look, it actually happened where
you thought you hit mute and you start screaming at your kids.
Oh, that's happened more than once. There've been some inappropriate moments, or my office is close to the bathroom and my son yelling for toilet paper while I'm at a black tie event, and those. I mean, I think what's happening though is people or at least maybe it's just me, but I feel like people care a little bit less about that now. We've come to understand that's just reality. But there have been moments that have been embarrassing. Sure. I mean, in my case, it's sometimes you don't think you're turning your camera on. You're not quite ready. And you turn it on, you're like, whoops, you're kind of rushing to get dressed and you forget. Now, not like some of those really bad ones we've seen online, but it happens. And I think one of the fun things about it, though, is my kids are not shy. So they, at the beginning, they stayed out of my office. No, they don't care if I'm on camera.
They poked their head. You could see the head poking.
Yeah, they come in and they say hi, and they go to the CEO of the company and they talk to him directly, and it's fun to see actually, because I think then people get to see a different side of you as well, which again humanizes you.
That's this piece that I'm sort of stuck on right now is how do you foster and develop the same type of relationships? Because we do business with people we like. That's just across the board. We will do business and have transactions for the sake of having it because of necessity. But we really traditionally gravitate towards people we like and then create these great opportunities. And so it's an art right now that we have to go through. And you said it, man, if you have a bit of a relationship, we train people within corporate connections, we call them one-to-ones. And we even have mapped it out with scripts and questions and timings and all that stuff so you can be as efficient and effective as possible. When Robert and Kai meet, we're going to cover this. I'm going to learn about your business, your wants, where you are, where you want to be. At the same time, that piece is great, but we need to find out more about, who the person is. And it's those nuances that create the relationship. So it's an art that we have to figure out,
Yeah, but I think
because I can be anybody. I did a little not TikTok, whatever the hell it's called, for my kids, and I use this new voice, and I could be anybody I want because we can. And so how do we break that barrier to find, so who I am, what I'm about, what my core values are, and et cetera, et cetera.
So I think you just hit it there, core values, and I think what you're talking about is how do you accelerate trust. Because I think a lot of successful relationships that lead to opportunities and successes, however you define success. So, I mean, whether you're in the music industry, film, the arts, or in industrial goods, when you're doing business, there's an element where it's business. And then there's an element, though, where I want to work with people I trust because when something goes wrong, I need to know I can pick up the phone and I could speak to them
100%.
and we can resolve issues.
100%.
Because at the end of the day, there are things that come up no matter what. That's just life. So to me, it comes back to building that community and how do you accelerate the trust? And you spoke a little bit at the beginning. I think, it's about what are the core values? What's the community based on? Are there ways to accelerate it? Or is there structure? So if I come in knowing that there are certain expectations of me, and I'll give you a simple example. We use a tool that came out of our sister company called Gains. It's very simple.
Yeah.
Goals, accomplishments, interests, networks, and skills. And it's the kind of stuff, it's a one-pager. I could give it to you. And there's stuff in there that I would never talk about in a one-to-one. It'd be vain. It would be egotistical. But it's part of my past. But if you see it, and just a quick anecdote.
Sounds pretty good.
Well, it's fantastic. And because you get to know someone.
Robert.
Yeah, well, no, you get to know someone so quickly. And kind of a great version of that, I had a guy a designer, industrial, not industrial design, sorry, interior designer who did corporate space. He did my office. Great guy. Really loved this guy, Dimitri. And I was trying to introduce him to someone for a better part of a couple years. I knew they would hit it off. They'd do business together. This other guy would benefit, big company, not a Fortune 500, but maybe in the Fortune 1000, big company, CEO. And I'm trying to connect him, and the guy's just not interested. He doesn't have time. He's like, I don't have time to meet this guy.
No bandwidth.
Well, yeah, and every 3 months I'd bring it up. And every 3 months he'd shoot me down. And he's a good friend. He didn't get upset, but he was like, no, just stop. And then, and I knew that he was trying to adopt a kid, and it had been a couple of years he'd been trying.
Yeah.
Now I've known this other guy for years, and one day he shares. We asked, "Hey, let's share our gains profile." Again, simple tool. And he gives me the sheet, and I read through it. And I'd never known this. I knew he had kids. I didn't know he had 5 adopted kids.
There you go.
So I go, hang on. I got to call my buddy. I call him. First thing he says when he picks up the phone is, "I'm not meeting your friend." I said, hang on. I go, forget the business.
He's right here.
I go, yeah. I go, I'm sitting with him right now. We're having a coffee. And I said, but you need to know, like, forget the business part. And I'll make sure you guys don't discuss business. But I think this is important. I just found out he's gone through the adoption process 5 times. He's like, put him on.
There you go.
Now, they didn't do business for a couple of years. They eventually did. It took time.
Yeah.
But they were talking in minutes. But if I hadn't known, and I didn't, it never occurred to me to say, are your kids adopted? I'd never seen them. Like, we weren't that close.
It's these common.
So how do you find that out? How do you learn?
That's it. And when you do, we're instantly connected.
Yeah.
If you play golf and all the golfers and find out you play golf where, you have something to talk about. You have that commonality. I've raced sailboats for years. If you like sailing, I like you better than if you don't.
Well, you just did that the other day. I introduced you to a buddy of mine out on the east coast of Canada,
Yeah.
And you were able to bring that up. And I know for him, that made a difference.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
And
he identifies with it.
But that's the cool piece. I wrote a book, no self-promotion, but I wrote a book, The Power of Connecting. And that's what it talks about, man. I wrote it more for me than to put it out and start flogging it. It was just to put my thoughts together, and there is the powerful strategy exercise of actually connecting, and you hear it in business, like, oh no, he'll never leave me. Why? Because of our relationship. It's a fact, man.
Yeah.
If I don't have a relationship with you, I can shut the door and just keep walking. When I do, I have to think about it, and that's a really interesting area, and it's this convoluted thing that happens because we don't have the bandwidth because we're taxed and we're busy. Oh, we have all these tools, but at the end of the day, we want to create relationships. We'd like to have fun, and I like what you said, man. It's finding those exercises to have a conversation, because when we're in a fast-paced world, all you're doing is waiting for me to shut up so you can start talking. And I mean, the science has proven it. We stare. We're no longer listening. We're just waiting for that appropriate time so I can jump in. And I think it's this art, and especially within this corporate connections framework and what we do, what I really love about it is it's relationship first. If you're coming here to hustle and do business, it's the nurturer, not hunter scenario, farmer, not hunter scenario. We don't want you to come. We love you, but we don't want you to come. Yeah. We're there to make, to create relationships. Business is easy. I truly believe that, man, that once I know you and like you, it's easy to do business. And how did I get my butt here on the Bjorn Identity? I actually like that voice. I think I'm going to start rolling with it. I'll test it for a day, maybe a week.
You may want to test that with your family first.
Yeah, 100%. But here with the Bjorn Identity, Remarque, the company, phenomenal company, social media, marketing, cutting edge. I met them at one of our meetings. We started chatting. We had some interesting commonalities, which led to a little deeper dive in conversation. And I came out of my comfort zone and said, hey, I'd love to brand myself. I did the Olympics. I played in the CFL. I did the America, blah, blah, blah. But like you said, humility, when am I going to bring it up? Well, I'd like to, because I think there's things I've learned and tools I have and experiences that I'd love to be sharing, because I think it gives
structure,
some structure or not reflection, but in context to certain things. And so that's a perfect example, because Vincent and Nicolas, 2 phenomenal guys, they said, wow, come on in, man. And so they helped me. We built the logo. We've put something that I'm passionate about together, because it's me, right down to the color swatch. It was painful for them, because all I wanted to do was, okay, when are we doing a podcast?
Well, that is what you're wearing today,
when are we
actually,
doing
as well.
Podcast?
In case someone's only listening to this, I could tell you his clothes matches his logo.
Well, there you go. It's all
looks good.
A science that I've gone into. Yeah, but I think it's an important piece, Robert. And you get it, and you know it. It's a relationship. Business comes, and I know that dichotomy that I'm too busy to really care, because I've stopped care. And I think that's that piece of the puzzle that starts opening up the bandwidth, or at least puts you into more productive scenarios, so that you don't have to hustle, that you have someone that cares about you. I think that becomes really, really beneficial.
Well, yeah, and I think if it's, as you said, it's about time management. And if you're with the right people in the right circumstances, you have the right level of trust, it accelerates everything. I don't have to waste time. If you introduce me to someone and you tell me that you trust them because I trust you, I'm going into that discussion, that call, that meeting right away with a certain level of trust, and that might cut down 80% of the work that
Oh,
it
at
takes
least,
to
but
get
you
there.
also hold me
Well, you're accountable now.
accountable.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's your brand. It's your name. I'm trusting you, and that's not easy to do for people. No. And I think that's the beauty of it. I think when you have the right,
you're outside your comfort zone, and you're giving up something that really has no benefit to you. It has a massive benefit, but it's perception, right?
Yeah.
And then I have to.
But it's also interesting because this is something, and McKinsey in 2021 did this study about collaboration.
Got your quote. I love it.
But it's interesting because it's about collaboration. And what we're talking about right now is collaboration,
100%.
right? Like when you talk about, I'm going to introduce you to someone, I'm collaborating with you, finding a way to help you. It was interesting because the study, what came out of it was that men have a lot more trouble. They tend to want to do things on their own. They tend to collaborate less. I don't think that's true of you and I, because the nature of what we do for a living.
We're metro men.
Well, I'll leave that to someone else to decide.
Back to my family.
Yes,
I gotta go.
But I think when you look at that, it's part of the beauty of what we get to do every day is we're helping other people figure out how to do this and do it better. And the end result is I get my life back. I get to save time, but I get to be just as effective. I remember a mentor of mine way back. I was talking about how busy I was. And he was telling me, he goes, "Why are you so proud of that?" He goes, "It should be about throughput. It's not how much you're doing in X number of hours. It's how much you can do in how little time. If you could take that pipe that has water and you can shoot the water through at twice the speed, that's more effective than building a bigger pipe." So he was like, you need to think about throughput, not just the total output. He goes, because you got one life to live. So how do you just live it more effectively? You don't necessarily want to compromise and give up stuff. So then how do you do it? And that's where I think
the 4-minute work week.
Well, the 4 hour, yeah. Well, it's a funny thing because I've seen him, and when you hear him, he doesn't work 4 hours.
No,
he works a lot more than that. Yeah. But the whole idea is that you could be that effective. And you said it before. You mentioned binge watching. I remember years ago, a good friend of ours, Brian Edgar. He said he was on the board of my company at the time. I had a tech company. And there was something that we couldn't do in the business. And he said, "How come?" And I was at a board meeting. And I said, "I've just been super busy. I've had this, I've had that." And he goes, "Yeah, it's bullshit." And I was like, "What?" Now, the problem is he knew me on a personal level, right? He's like, "Well, I know you went to see that movie. I know you binge watched that show in the past month. You could have been working." And I was like, "Wow." And he said, "No, it's okay." He said, "But don't tell me that you're too busy." He goes, "You just chose to do something else. Maybe your time was filled, but that was just you prioritizing." And it's funny. I think a lot of people, when they say busy, like you, is a good busy. And I kind of wonder.
100%, man. And it's funny when people look at you. It's almost offensive. What do you mean? Well, I'm not good busy.
Yeah.
I'm first to put my hand up. I'm not.
Well, isn't it great?
I haven't organized and structured and that. I am busy. Could I be more efficient? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like the Dunbar theory, right? What is it, 150, 170, 150, whatever the number is.
We can manage 150 relationships.
150 relationships. And then there was an amazing book called Who's in Your Room? And I remember getting on a flight. We were going to an event in Georgia in the beach area. What was it called? It will come to me. Gorgeous part of the world. Near Savannah, just north. Hilton Head.
Yes.
Hilton Head.
Yep.
That could have been awkward if I didn't get it. But we were going there, and
I thought you were going for Charleston.
The gentleman that wrote the book, did a presentation at this event, and my wife and I were there listening. And it was really funny because on our flight home, we had delays, and it took a lot of time. We just started talking about who is in our room. And we ended up cutting out a few people that took from the bucket but didn't put back in. Yeah. They were the great people, fun, but they took up our bandwidth. We didn't really get that reciprocal benefit from it. And I find it interesting, you see someone with 10,000 LinkedIn or 5,000 or, okay, if you're a transactional person selling widgets or something, great. They've spread the word, spread the news. But, what we're talking about is where leaders connect and the CEOs and executive community, it's relationship based. And so I sort of look at it and say, how could I prune all these contacts and find, 50 that I know if I call the answer.
Yeah.
And put that value to it. And these are the little things that I think we have to start looking at, because you want to surround yourself with like-minded people, collaborative people, good people that, have the want to engage, which leads me into our third topic. Nice segue, Kai. Thank you, Robert.
Yes, that was beautiful.
That
Kai.
was great. It's
Yes.
the strength of a network to facilitate your bandwidth. And so it's that point I was just alluding to. How do you manage, man? And so it is funny because, I get a request for a Zoom. I should have a rating system. Here's 10 requests. This individual's number one. I should take it. And this individual could be a bit of a waste of my time. This individual will be supportive. Like if we could actually put some sort of schematic grid together.
Well, kind of like the triage in a hospital, right? It's you got to pick.
You got to pick.
Yeah.
And it's funny. We look at that, and I think that's what I love about Corporate Connections. Not only do I own it for Canada and run it as a company, I'm a member, which I enjoy, and we're part of the same group. And we got 25 people around the table, and the beauty is the diversity we have. These are individuals I might not have spent and developed quality relationships with just because we're different.
It's actually,
I like to ski, they don't like to ski. I like the sun, they get sunburned. There are a plethora of reasons because, go to the DISC profile. There's a bunch of different personalities, but we corral them together. And you said it earlier, it's having that commonality.
But it's funny you say that, because last night, as you mentioned earlier, we were both at the same meeting, and I brought a gentleman, a neighbor of mine, and he's lived for about 3 years now, across the street, right across the street from me, so not far. I see him, 3-4 times a week, out front of his house, mowing the lawn, whatever it might be. And he doesn't speak English that fluently
you said
yet.
that it was a while that you've been staring each other gardening.
Well, yeah, and we'd never really gotten to know each other. And then just lately, we've had a couple of chats, and I said, hey, you should come to this meeting. He's from Northeast China. And it was interesting because, again, there's kind of a distance between us, maybe language, culture, who knows?
I think you could start with language.
Well, yeah, that would be the start.
That would
well,
help.
it started when
Scott's English wasn't very strong.
This is the funny thing. The whole thing started because one neighbor called him Steve. The other neighbor called him like Simon, and my wife's like, no, his name's Scott. So I just went over and said, hey, I know none of those names are his real name. But it was funny because he came last night, and I think he was enjoying himself, but there was one member in particular I wanted to introduce him to, where I knew there was some good connections there. And then they went off, and this member, kind of brilliantly, he didn't know this guy was going to be there. He pulls out this bottle of Chinese wine from China. And Scott's
57 proof.
Yeah, 57 proof. Well, that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
But so you could see that
he was beaming, man.
Yeah,
Scott,
his eyes just
was
like
beaming.
Yeah.
He went from this introvert, uncomfortable, so much noise around him because it's French, there's English. And as soon as I was watching that, he grabbed the bottle, and then he meticulously started to try to take the wrapper off. His shoulders popped up, the bravado, he was engaged, beaming. I think the liquor was probably pretty good.
Yeah, it was. I tried it. It was good.
So he was excited to
and at the end of the evening, he was in, we carpooled, good citizens of the world. We drove back home at the end of the evening, and our relationship had completely changed. Not because he and I were bonding throughout the evening. I introduced him to someone, and he said, man, that guy understands my culture. He understands me. He goes, that was incredible. I want to come back. And he goes, it's amazing. He goes, this evening.
Did you just find me a new member, Robert?
Well, maybe. But he was like, this is one of the best nights I've had in Canada.
On,
and and again, but that's because I trusted this other guy because I know him. And I was like, I knew if I connected them, good things would happen. And as you said, it's a great part of this business. You get to put good people together, and you watch the magic happen. And that's invaluable.
Listen, it's not for everyone. Corporate Connections, phenomenal place, great meetings, blah, blah, blah. But I think there's some merit to surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals. And, it was funny. We have big networks. Someone needed something. Someone said that they could do it. I'm like, it's T-ball. I got to put these two people together. I'll never forget. I did that on a couple occasions for this individual, and he said, "Yeah, man, you set it up, I knock it down." And probably the worst thing the person ever said, because it made me actually think and say, "Yeah, I've been setting it up, and you've been knocking it down. What about me?"
Yeah, it's all going one way.
It's okay to say that, man. And so we talk about proactivity. It's engagement. If I set you up with something, it's my pleasure. If I can make you smile or connect you guys, I call it the thank you. You say thanks, the other person says thanks. But I think it's important that at some point we have this evaluation of our network. You don't have to give me something back, but I want to, at some opportunity or some time, there's going to be reciprocal, personal, professional, whatever it may be, but the effort's there. So that's something you innately do. And it doesn't mean that, I'm not going to hang out with you if you're not giving me value. It's not what we're talking about. It's that you're engaged.
Yeah.
And the opportunity may come to me or someone around me, but it's just fueling the pot. Back to my bucket with my wife and sort of you're not putting into the bucket. Well, yeah, that's a non-negotiable. It doesn't have to be to me. It doesn't have to be in kind to what I do. The effort or the want's there to be supportive. And so I think you've done a really good job, thus your role as the global president with Corporate Connections. You've done a great job in building that yourself, irregardless of our platform.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and certainly I try to do that. And it's always a little uncomfortable when you talk about this stuff about yourself. I think one of the interesting things.
This is just for the audience.
Well, no.
Robert does not have any trouble.
No, I'm super comfortable on stage.
He's a humble bugger, but
no, look, I like recognition as much as the next person. It's I love doing what I do.
We need it.
Well, it feels good. It feels good to be recognized. Like I love giving, but you hope that somewhere down the line, someone recognizes what you're doing, and as you said, a thank you goes a long way. A public thank you goes an even longer way.
Dude, that's the art of how I manage it. Is I look to get the thank you.
But it's interesting also because you look at our network, and we mentioned it's in 26 countries now as of today. We just launched Taiwan, China, and it's interesting when you look at members around the world, because the one thing that I've really noticed, and sometimes someone might be listening to this or watching this and saying, well, yeah, these guys, they're in North America, they're in Canada, they don't.
Thousands upon thousands of people, Robert, will be watching.
Yes. Well, I'd like to think millions eventually, Kai, but let's start with thousands. Sure.
Well, I'm just talking episode 1.
Yeah.
We'll get some road underneath our feet.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting though, when so I've had the opportunity to travel all over the world and I meet these people, when you realize we're all the same.
Yeah, man.
And that's the beauty of it. We adhere to this set of values and this structure to make things easier, not because we want to create structure. It's to actually make it seamless and simple. So I don't have to think about it. I know when I go in there, I don't have to worry about the people who are in that room. They've been vetted. I know they adhere to the same values. I know they're givers. And it's amazing when I travel around the world. And we did this survey last year of our members. There's over 1,000 people who answered this. And it surprised me how honest they were with their answers, because one of the things they said, one of the reasons they became members or stay on as members is that it's lonely at the top.
100%.
And I think we all have, certainly when I was younger, we all have this perception of these successful people kind of being the opposite of that. They've got massive.
That could be the Bjorn Identity episode 2. It's lonely at the top.
Well, and
stay tuned.
And I think it is, right. It's. I'm
serious. I'm writing it down.
Few people will ever admit that. So I was kind of shocked at how many people said that, and I found that heartening to hear that, because I think one of the challenges is we navigate our way through our lives and our families and our businesses and our communities and the charities we're involved in and whatever else. Is it does happen where all of us at times kind of wonder if anyone else understands what we're going through. And when you have that group of peers that you can trust and have real conversations, not those superficial conversations, but where you can actually, and you said it, if you could
Real.
will,
You need to emphasize that word. There's a plethora of different words: real, factual, uninhibited.
Yeah.
Like
It's amazing.
like kimonos open. This is, you've not to cut you off. Continue.
No, I'm just trying not to visualize you with the kimono open as you said that.
I'm on a diet.
There you go. You're looking good, Kai.
Yeah. So again, something I need to bring back home and keep there.
Which part? The diet?
No, the kimono.
So, I think it's, look, at the end of the day, I certainly and I had kids pretty late, so I had a lot of time before I had my kids. And I didn't appreciate just how valuable my time was until I had kids.
Yeah.
And now it's become that much more valuable. And we have this common friend of ours who's in our chapter with us. He lives down in Miami and we're up here in Montreal, and he's still a member of our group. And it's interesting because at one point I sat down with him and he was running a large multinational retail company. And I was asking, so what do you get out of the membership? Like, why? And he was giving me a bunch of answers, and it was more almost habit at that point for him. And as we started talking, all of a sudden he started realizing how much time he saved.
Mm.
He said, we're let's say we're going into LA to open up. This network just speeds up my access to everything from real estate to lawyers to, whatever it might be that I need, to finding employees, to finding a manager. And that's where we were talking about, going back to your question, like the strength of a network to facilitate your bandwidth. If you know the right people, you're just going to get to the answer that much more quickly.
Also, your decision making.
Yeah.
I remember that with Brian, lovely man, and how he could facilitate and accelerate with good, strong context. Because, I sold my business last year. And all I know how to do is build a business. I'd never done any transactions, anything meaningful. And so now I'm going into this new abyss of, what the hell do I do? And it was people around me that I could be real with and factual and just say, here, man, I need some help. And I was lucky enough through a proactive network to have a bunch of people step up. And so you got to pay to play, man. Yeah, I'm not going to get legal advice to the hill that doesn't cost me like everyone else, but I'm a heck of a lot more cognizant of the right legal advice I need. You can want any kind of multiple, but get the M&A specialist to come in who, thank you, Robert introduced me to a phenomenal person. It was like seeing eye dog for me. It went, but he gave me all the information.
And that's the trust,
and I knew it wasn't him trying to extend the mandate or anything other than, hey man, I like you. You come well vetted from a good buddy of mine. I want to help you. Here's some factual stuff. So you still have to go through the process, but it was really welcomed to have that front end. And I think that's the value, is that front end. Not every deal's going to go smooth. Not every opportunity is going to come to fruition. But if we have the environment in front of us where we can make educated guesses or decisions, to me, that's that piece that you're talking about, is we surround ourselves. And that's something that they don't really train out there.
No.
There's no networking.
No, they don't.
Started a bunch of bozos doing networking training in different environments. Now they're all great people, but there's no. It's brand new, and so when we come to this topic, to me, it's a whole hour that we can sit and say, how the heck do we do it? And that's again why I wrote my book, was putting pieces and tools in there to try to have some chronological process to weed out and maximize, the efficiency, effectiveness of my network.
Yeah.
It's my net worth. No shit. It is.
Yeah. No, it's
we're strong as the weakest link. Yeah, exactly. There's a reason why these are, different comments that have lasted the test of time. Your network's important. So. Yeah.
No, look, I couldn't agree more.
You had it with your forum when you had your first sale of the business.
So I mean, a similar story. So we have these subgroups within our network
Forums,
called
peer-to-peer.
forums. Yeah, the great peer-to-peer network. And kind of the cool thing about the forums is it's people from different industries who, and I think as an entrepreneur, and there's people are going to listen to this. A lot of people in our network who will probably hear this. You're entrepreneurs. You're successful people. The reality is you will continue to have success whether I'm in your life or not. And that's fine. And that's great. But the beauty of this is if I'm sitting in a room, and I think as an entrepreneur, generally, if you own a business, it's because you think you can do it better than other people. How can you build a business if you don't think you can do it as well, or if not better, in a different way, different angle, something original, or sometimes it's a better mousetrap. Like I've just figured out a way, and I know there's an opportunity here to build something. So you have to have a certain amount of confidence and ego to do this. But what's interesting is, again, they don't teach this in school very well. Very few places do. All right,
They give you process.
Well, they teach you management
but that
tools,
EQ,
but not.
the emotional quote.
Yeah.
That piece. Yeah.
But all of a sudden, when you're surrounded by a bunch of people, and what you realize when you open up, and again, it's hard to do. It's hard to open up and show like where your weaknesses are, your fears, your challenges. But when you do, and you got that trusted network around you, it's amazing how you realize at least one person in the room has probably gone through something very similar.
100%.
And then they share, and you're like, oh my God, okay, one, I'm not alone. Two, I've now got a roadmap, or I've got someone who can guide me through the darkness.
It might be awkward if it goes quiet.
When that's happened, it has. But like when I sold my
Yeah.
business, I worked my butt off to build this business with my business partner,
Yeah.
a great team. And then we get to the sale, and we had investors, we had a whole bunch of people involved, financiers, banks and so on. It was a complicated close of business because we had to kind of time everything and work it out and get everyone on board and aligned at the same time. And we did it. And then the 11th hour, I went back to my group of peers, my forum from Corporate Connections.
100%.
And I said, hey guys, can I get an hour of your time this afternoon? And these are all people, it could take weeks to get a meeting with them, and they all dropped what they were doing to make the time. And I told them what we were doing. I told them how we valued. I told them sort of the net result, and we're ready to close the deal. And the feedback I got was that I'd undervalued my company. Now, most entrepreneurs don't undervalue. They tend to overvalue. And the amazing thing is, and it kind of killed me to do it at the time, but we killed the deal. Upset a lot of people. 2 years later, we ended up selling for more than twice the price, 2.2 times the price. Same revenues, same bottom line, but restructured
Yep.
in a way that
I remember
would make it
I
more
was
attractive.
part of that
amazing.
meeting and part of that forum, and I remember not saying a word because I hadn't gone through that experience.
Yeah, half the people in the room had nothing to
and
say.
Pierre was one of the guys I
Yeah.
remember was very vocal because he just looked at it, and that's what he did all day, all night. He knew the space, understood, and so that's the powerful piece. Like I was saying earlier with the Dunbar philosophy, be picky, or at least be aware of who we're filling. That our
who's in your
group
room?
of people around us. If we only have 150, great. They don't all have to be transactional. We want to have a plethora of different, styles and individuals around us. But I think it's a new era. Big AI's coming. All these things are just flooding in. But again, that human element's so important. And so to come back and wrap up this first inaugural, the Bjorn Identity episode, we're talking about bandwidth and, the different things that tax our time, right? I saw something that I thought was so cool. I hired a strategic analyst, an analytic person, and they built me a calendar with colors. And the color green was me time. And so it was this enlightening thing where they were setting my calendar up, and I had me time during the day.
Yeah, don't show your kids that.
No,
We'll
I
fill it.
I had the focus time, the calls, that. And we went through the month, and then the shittiest thing ever happened was as soon as the calendar shifted to the next month, I had not maintained the engagement with the analyst, and my calendar was now uncolored. And so I lost. And so what I did learn was the value of this individual. But at the same time was, creating that habit and the need to manage. And I think so there's a process, right?
Yeah. No, I think so. I think
Do you have tools like that in your calendar? Or is
I
it
do.
just full?
No, I do.
It's a badge of honor when you get to open your calendar and it's full. This is how important I am.
It's for me. It's a badge of honor when it's open.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
You get to go on the motorboat.
Yeah, the way I've done. So I do block time, and actually, one of the gentlemen, Francois, who was there last night, he's the one who helped me set that up.
Yeah.
And you're right. It makes a difference because I think at the end of the day, I try to.
We talked about finding an hour a day per employee with the right tools and process and system and understanding. I think he said that last night.
Yeah, and
we won't give his last name just in case it's not true. Yeah. But if it is, episode 2, we will talk about you, Francois.
Yeah, we'll be happy to do it.
Yeah, but it's he helped you out, eh?
Yeah, and I think it's also surrounding yourself with the right people. So whether it's him, I've brought in people over the years. We just hired someone at the head office who I think is going to take a ton off my plate. I'm not an ops guy. That's not my natural tendency. I can do it if I have to. And I think that's one of the ways we all waste time is we tend to do the things that we're not best at. And that's where that whole idea of collaboration comes in. If I have the right people around me, I may not go and do a Six Sigma course and become an efficiency expert and process expert, but there are people who love that stuff, bathe in it. That's what they live for. Find them, hire them, do what you're best at. Focus on what you can bring to the table better than anyone else. And then select your network, select the right people, surround yourself with the right people who give you energy, who get you really being you at your best instead of the people who drain that energy from you. And that's taken me years to figure out because you want to be a nice person, or maybe you don't. But I try. I'm like, hey, I try to be the person. There was a great ad for The Economist like 30 years ago or 20 years ago, and it was like, would you like to sit next to you at dinner?
Yeah.
And
hell yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I try to bring that out when I used to go out to a dinner and I was tired and I wasn't in the mood. I go, all right, come on, put on your game face, be your best. And I go, because I don't want to be sitting next to, or you go to a wedding, and you're sitting next to someone and you don't talk the whole evening because there's nothing to discuss with them. They don't engage. So I think you want to be with those people who bring the best out of you.
Yeah,
and if you
100%.
do that, you're going to have fun, and you're going to make, if you have the right people around you, you will find that time. The tools are awesome. Use the tools. Use all the, whether it's project management tools, it's time management tools, they're out there, and there are a lot of experts. So use them. But it always comes back down to why. Why do you want that time? What are you going to do with that time? Who are you going to engage with? And how's that going to make a difference for you, for your family? You talked about me time. People lose that. That's one of the first things that disappears.
I didn't know what the heck to do with me time.
Well, it's tough.
Sit and stare.
Yeah.
But so listen, I think this is really interesting, and we're going to wrap this inaugural podcast up. But what I'm sort of seeing and understanding is there's a consistency for everyone. We're all busy. We all have access to so much, right? You're going to be in traffic, learn another language. Okay. I mean, we can do all these different things. There has been new iterations of technology, new tools, and new ways of doing business. It's the norm's working from home now. I can't personally. I got to go to brick and mortar and get to an office, but we have these options, and I think that there are lots of tools, like you said. There are a lot of tools. And so I'd like to finish on, I think one of the most important things is use your network, ask questions. Ask anyone else, are you busy in this capacity? Have you found mechanisms or strategies to manage your time better? Don't just forge forward alone. Use the people around you. Get some insight. I've called you on a number of things to just fire some stuff by you and get some insight. Doesn't mean I'm going to take it. Yeah. But again, knowledge is power. And so, Robert, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on this beautiful sunny day in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, for my inaugural the Bjorn Identity podcast. So it was a pleasure to have you.
It's an honor to be here, man. Thank you.
I appreciate everybody taking the time to listen to us. This will get better and better and better, and then it will be the best. But Kai Bjorn, Robert Gervais, thank you very much for your time. Session 1, the Bjorn Identity, is done. Cheers.